So in the next 15 minutes, we'll be hearing from Dansoa Adote, who is the Vice President, Strategy and Operations at SESO Global. She also has 15 years of experience in various aspects of the real estate industry. So let's put our hands together for the beautiful Dansoa Adote.
Thank you so much, Cassandra, and it's a pleasure to be here. You know how when you go to church conferences and the last speaker comes and always says how much pressure he's under because everyone has, yeah, that's me right now. So be gentle, be gentle. But that's on a lighter note. Actually, I say that to bring home the point that real estate is probably one of the most multifaceted industries that you can have. You've heard from brokers, you've heard from interior designers, you've heard from valuers, there are architects in the midst. I'm going to talk about something a bit different, but it all ties in, and none of them are disjointed. Everything ties into one whole seamless fabric, right? So I'm going to be talking about market intelligence and consumer behavior. Typically, when anyone is introduced into real estate, you often hear one thing, and people say, oh, there are three most important things in real estate, which are location, location, location. Yes. So we all walk with this understanding that location is the most important thing in real estate. And to a very large extent, that is true. But it is also true that location alone doesn't do it, or the location is impacted by other things, right? What makes one location better than the other? It's important to understand that. And anyone who knows me knows that I like asking questions. Like if I had a middle name that I had to choose myself at this age, probably be why. Because when people ask me, like, okay, why is that? And how did that happen? And it can be very annoying, but it has served me well in my career because asking why has led to uncovering a lot of what is going on in our industry. So we're going to talk about market intelligence and consumer behavior and how they affect everything that is happening within the real estate space. So what is market intelligence? I mean, generally speaking, it's knowing what is going on in the particular industry that you are dealing with. So in our respect, it's real estate. What's happening? Who are the players in the industry? How are people responding in the industry? How are global economics and local politics affecting everything that is going on in the industry? How does pricing play a role? How does the size of units? And as I mentioned, how everything comes together, you realize that it's not just a valuer's job. You're dealing with an interior designer, you're dealing with someone who understands pricing, you're dealing with someone who understands consumer behavior, and knowing what is going on in the market helps you to determine strategy. It helps you to understand where the opportunity is, where the market is going, and I mean where the market is even going physically. Because even if we look at Accra, and I don't know how many of you have stayed in Accra probably for the last 20 years. I know they're quite young people here, but if you're above 30, you do have a 20-year memory bank, right? You remember that Accra was Circle. Like Circle was the current airport city. That was where everything was happening. It was Ebony Meat Pie, probably go further to bus stop. Yeah, now it's laughing. But that was Accra. Then it moved to Ridge. And then Ridge became this, what's that word? I won't even say bush, it became the commercial district. That's where all the offices, where everybody wanted to work in a bank in Ridge, right? Then it moved to Airport City, because Airport City was not always Airport City. And gradually, it's moving towards East Legon. And that is the flow. And it's important to understand these things, and it's important to know why these things are happening, and that is why market intelligence is important. So what are the objectives? The objectives are to know where and who, like I've mentioned. What industry am I dealing with? And we are dealing with real estate, and who are the major and minor players? And it's important to know minor players because you can have one big major player, but in some industry, the minor players come together and can even be a consolidated player that overtake a perceived major player. What products are available to the customer and what trends can you identify? In Ghana, there are so many different stratas of the market. Even when you look at the high-end market, there's the uber high-end, the multi-million dollars. And then you have the apartment market, and they all appeal to different people. And you need to understand whether you're a consumer or whether you're a developer, which segment of the market are you playing in? What products have been offered and why? Right? In Ghana, we all know we have like an imitation syndrome. People do things because people are doing things. There's nothing that goes into anything beyond Hannah is doing it and it's working, so it would definitely work for me. But it's important to understand why Amissah Park is what it is. You see, buying land in Amissah and building there will not guarantee you the success that Amissah Park has if you don't understand the components of the success, the components of the development that appeal to their consumers, right? So it's important to know, and unfortunately, not every development succeeds. And why didn't it succeed? Was it the price? Was it the layout? Was it the location? Right? All of these things play very critical role in the industry. And then how? How are people doing things? Anne talked a lot about using digital and leveraging off digital to be more efficient. But beyond that, how are companies forging the success that they are forging? What is contributing to their success? If you're in a real estate, if you're a developer or you're a broker for a developer, it's your job to understand all of these things, right? Maybe not in as much detail, but at least the very basics you need to understand so that when you're advising people and informing people of the decisions that they need to make, it's coming from an informed position to help them, not necessarily to make a commission or to make money for your employer. It's always to help the end user, because the end user is the one who's keeping you and your employer in employment, right? Okay, so I've touched on a couple of these. Is there a gap in the market? In Ghana, we talk a lot about a housing deficit. There are not enough houses. But in some segments of the real estate market, there's a glut. There are too many houses. So is there a glut? Is there a deficit? Which segments does it affect? Who is it affecting, right? Is it on the rental side? Is it on the sales side? What does the supply look like? What does a target audience actually need? Now, Hannah and I worked together in Ghana Home Loans, which is now FMB, several years ago. And it always used to amaze me how people would come, young people like myself and younger, and you're having a conversation with them, asking them, okay, obviously they want to buy a house and they want to use a mortgage. A mortgage is like a loan to buy a house, for those who may not know. And you ask them, okay, what kind of house do you want? They say a 3-bedroom with a garage. And I'm like, okay, who is going to be living in that 3-bedroom? Oh, I'm single, I'm not yet married. And so like, what on earth are you going to be doing with a 3-bedroom and a garage? And I'll go into a bit more detail about that. But when someone builds a 3-bedroom house, generally the target market is not for the single, right? Because as a single person, you really only need a bedroom, a living room, a kitchen, and a bathroom, right? So who is the target market? And what are they looking for? And what do they need? It's important. What do they need? What are the anticipated changes in the market? What are the current trends? In Ghana, particularly from 2019, there has been a shift in the market, right? A shift in the demography of who the consumer is. And that has been informed by world events, Corona being one of them, but even beyond Corona, geopolitical events. And having an understanding of this as a developer or anybody in the space also helps you to position your offering and also helps you to understand, okay, if the market has changed, does my product still sit within the desirable category, right? We all know that property prices in Accra are Accra prices. Right, literally Accra prices. You can go and come in 24 hours and the price has changed. And so it's forcing people to make changes to what they think they want or what they want. So you may sacrifice a bigger home to be closer to your workplace, right? But if you're a developer, do you know this? Do you know that this is what consumers are feeling? This is how they are facing. So when you are pricing, who are you pricing for? And sometimes you hear a price of a property in a particular location and you're wondering, I mean, how? How did you arrive at this? And sometimes, unfortunately, the sales agents and the brokers bear the brunt of the pressure. Why are you not selling? Why are you not selling? But it really has nothing to do with them. The research was not done. The market intelligence was not gleaned. And so the product does not fit the market. It has nothing to do with the sales. And I've been there, so I know, right? and so it's really, really important to consider all these factors. And this list is not exhaustive. This list is not exhaustive. So it comes to, why we are all here. It's about real estate, but everything is always about the end user, who is the consumer. And it's always important to understand the mind state of the consumer and what is affecting their decision-making processes. Thanks to social media, we have acquired a very foreign taste, and it informs everything, honestly speaking. And apart from social factors, there are so many other factors that shape a person's psyche when they are looking to buy real estate. In Ghana, in particular, real estate is a status symbol. So Hannah talked about owning property beyond a house. Because it's nice to build a house, but what's the objective? But the average Ghanaian, and homebred, raised in Ghana consumer, it's a status symbol. It's to flex. Charlie, the pressure is getting worse. You hear that your friend has bought a house, this person, you don't know how. You don't know whether it was inherited. You don't know whether they're in a company that's giving them 5%. And so they're literally paying, you don't know. All you know is that they have a house, so you need one. And so that can inform a person's buying decision. Once upon a time, I don't know whether it's changed, but I don't think it has, the majority of Ghanaians would not buy a semi-detached, much less a terrace. And born in Ghana, raised in Ghana, they wouldn't buy an apartment, sorry about that. They wouldn't buy an apartment. And the reason why the apartment market is so overtaken with foreign investors is because Ghanaians felt that apartments were beneath them. Where will I pound my fufu? Yeah. Where will I pound my fufu? Even now, if you spoke to a young person looking to buy a home and you suggested a studio apartment, it will be met with resistance. The same people who complain that the prices are too high, right? And so understanding all of this helps people to position their products, help people to position their pricing. And even as a consumer, as we all are, because we all are going to build generational wealth through real estate, one house at a time, you need to understand what influences you and what you are prone to. Are you buying that house because everybody in your friends group has told you about the land that they bought? Maybe their boyfriend or their husband or their parents has given them something, so all of a sudden you feel pressure. You need to learn to address those things. And I've talked about the economic factors. Ghana has gone through some tough times over the past 18 months, which has made it very difficult for especially younger people to get onto the property ladder. It's almost near impossible to get a mortgage, not because mortgages are not available, but because the rates have skyrocketed because of inflation. And it hasn't always been this way. And hopefully, based on what we heard yesterday, we are coming out of that. But it affects a person's ability to buy. And so what options are there? What options, looking at it from you, the consumer, and then if you're a developer, knowing that the majority of locals and even foreigners, I don't like to use the word for non-Ghanaians, who may not have access to 80%, 90% financing, how is that informing your pricing or the payment plans that you have in place? All of this comes together so that the market is in synchrony. The consumers, the developers understand the consumers understand the terrain, and the market is flourishing because in every developed country, the vast majority of the wealth is from real estate. And so if there are things that are hindering access to the real estate market, your economy is not going to grow. It just will not grow. And so these are the factors, the psychological factors, social factors, cultural factors, personal factors. And the thing about human beings is that these things are not static. They change. So a new wave of things will come that will influence us. And so maybe when I'm talking at the AY conference in 2030, I'll be telling you a whole different list of reasons why people are doing what it is that they're doing. So it's very important to stay abreast. Hannah has talked about research. If you're a broker here, you can't just be, I sell houses. It is 500,000 Ghana cedis. That cannot be your offering. You need to be able to explain the market. If a client is asking you, like, is this a good investment? You need to be able to show them figures. You need to be able to show them trends. What I used to do when I was younger in my career, because I'm very curious, very generally, I would drive around myself at my own cost, right? So again, don't always expect your companies to be doing things. Your self-development is your emphasis on self-development, right? And I used to drive around, and a lot of the things I know were self-taught. I didn't go to any, I have been to conferences, but my employer did not sit down and say, oh, Dansoa, it is this, it is that, it is that. I empowered myself, and that has actually positioned me very well in this industry. Okay, so this is how consumer preferences and the market has responded to things. So if you look at the images on the left, that's what houses typically look like in the early 2000s, very lateral. We had a lot of land. People were not buying. There were no mortgages, right? So, and if a Ghanaian is buying a house, he is buying a house. It has to be spacious and whatnot. But we realized that the trend is changing. Houses are becoming, I won't say smaller, but a bit more efficient in the use. So story buildings, apartments, and all of this is in response to what is happening in the market, who is showing interest in the market, and how the market is responding to everything it is being influenced by. So I just want to run us through a quick case study, and Hannah mentioned it, Mahjong. I like to call communities by their original name. So, and the thing is, East Legon Hills, Mahjong is East Legon Hills. And East Legon Hills was part of the marketing, because she mentioned when it was mentioned that an airport was going to be sited at like the Pram area, everybody, because to the Ghanaian, if this is airport residential area, and unfortunately my father didn't buy, and there's another airport, because again, a lot of Ghanaians think that airport residential area is what it is because of the airport, which is not, but that is the underlying assumption. It's the underlying assumption. So if there's an airport somewhere, that place is going to become just like airport residential area, so I'm going there. So we all know East Legon. And everybody wishes they lived in East Legon. A lot of people do, actually. So Mahjong is like between Ashalibotre and Adringano, thereabout. But we all know it has East Legon Hills, and there was an intense marketing campaign. And the response was, if this is East Legon now, and people saw into East Legon, bought into it, and it has become what it is now, because East Legon, I mean, love it or hate it, it's a lovely place. It's a place you can live, you can take your kids to school. If you do your own business, you can do everything within East Legon and not come out. So I'll go to East Legon Hills. And the very first time that thing happened, I remember, and they were targeting young professionals. Because again, when East Legon started coming, it was young professionals, people with young families and what's not. And over a period of 15 years, you will see the extent of growth in East Legon Hills. So the image on the left is 2008, nothing there, absolutely nothing. But you come to 2023, which is 15 years later, that place is almost completely built up. And the people behind the promotion of this area understood their target market. They knew what the drivers were. They knew what would make the consumer move. And, they haven't failed to deliver on the promise. It has become what they said it would become, but it's not in a vacuum. So you can't go and buy land somewhere and say, okay, this is East Legon Valley. Right? This is East Legon Valley. And then people are just going to, because this happened at a particular time where certain factors were at play. You know, it's just like in like church circles, they say a kairos moment or a serendipity. It was just the perfect thing at the perfect time. And every developer here can do the perfect thing at the perfect time if you understand the dynamics that you're playing with. So like I said, Anne mentioned that real estate is an art and a science. You have to be pleasant, you have to be dressed well, you have to smell well, you have to look the parts. Because you have to look like what you are selling. Like you can afford what you are selling, even if you can't, right? But it is also a science. You need to know the facts. You need to know the figures. You need to understand the trends. And at the time, 2008 to about 2008, it was a really good time for Ghana. Mortgages were on the increase. People were earning a lot more. The banking sector was being, I won't say infiltrated, but a lot of the Nigerian banks came, so there was a lot of, competition. Salaries were high. You wouldn't spend a year at home. There were jobs. So people had access to finance, to funding. And then there was East Legon Hills, right? So it was just the perfect matchmaking. I've talked about the importance of market intelligence. It really is about positioning. It's about putting products that are relevant to the market, that are also appropriately priced. If you are trying to attract a younger audience, there's a certain price point. If you are in a particular location, you need to understand who wants to live in that location. The people who want to live there, how much do they earn? Are there any schools in that location? Because obviously, if you want a younger demographic, the likelihood that there will be young children is high. So you need to be able to see how all of these things play into what you are offering, and not just, buy a land anywhere, or if you're a consumer, go and buy property anywhere because the price is right. A lot of things come into play to making the right decision, and it also makes you an authority. There's nothing more fulfilling as a professional to say that something will happen and it happens. It means you know your stuff. And in a generation where we have a lot of, scammers and people who mislead, it's nice to stand out as someone who actually has taken the pains to do the work and also get the result. So what's next? What's happening now? And I did mention that a lot of factors play a role in the industry and the decisions that are made in the industry. So fortunately, as of 2022, Ghana is almost back to its pre-COVID tourism revenue levels. So you realize that in 2020, the whole world shut down. So it's understandable because of COVID, not a lot of what's happening. But also in that COVID period, that was the most successful period for me because there was a lot of uncertainty and things switched. They became more of a buyer's market because all of a sudden, people wanted to get rid of assets because everybody thought the world was coming to an end, right? That's not a good thing, the world. But yeah, that's what. So if you had cash or access to cash, it was a very good time to make very good deals. And I know a lot of people who made amazing deals during COVID, like 2020, 2021. But thankfully, we are out of COVID. It was announced that it's no longer a global emergency. And I'm sure by now we are exceeding the 2019, that's the pre-COVID tourism revenue. And why is tourism so important? I think that government has done an amazing job of touting Ghana as the return location, and this has brought a lot of attention to the country. And because, Ghana, it was mentioned that we are the most Pan-African country in the continent, is also very welcoming. So it's a destination investors. It's one of the top 3 for most investors looking to invest in Africa. But apart from that, we have our brothers and sisters in the diaspora who are looking to return. And some of the reasons for that return are political reasons. The aftermath of George Floyd's death and everything that happened about it just pushed a lot of people to say, you know what, I think I need to go back home. Find out where home is and go back. And the government has done a really good job of positioning Ghana as that location. So a lot of the shifts in our consumer market is actually from the diaspora market. And that is why, you know, developers need to pay attention to that, because they are also coming with their own psychological factors, their own cultural factors, because our cultures are not the same. And this has an impact on the product and your pricing. And just to give you an example, somebody who comes from probably the United States and goes to, I don't want to make it seem like I'm maligning any location, so I won't mention a location, but let's say a location that's not really developed. And you know Ghana, some prices, even whether developed or undeveloped area, the price is the same. So the price is $150,000. And you're Ghanaian, because maybe you don't know what else is out there, you're like, oh, it's not bad. I mean, if I go to this other place, it's 250. But the person from the diaspora will like, no, I mean, I'm not going to buy this one. It doesn't even have green space. You know, and that's one thing that always comes up. There are no green spaces. And I personally don't understand why anyone will build a house without green space. If that's you, I said it, but it's really important because it ties into the whole wellness of your being. But that's a conversation for Malika, and right? But the diaspora is really pushing our market in a direction which is good. It's a healthy good, because it's also taking the attention of Accra. Accra was all a lot of people knew. If you're not in Accra, you might as well be in another country. But because they are coming from a different perspective, where people live in the countryside, people live in the hills, people are used to going hiking, cultural factors, social factors. So you see that places like Kaswa, Ebri, Pram, they are on the rise as far as where opportunities are. Where your average Ghanaian will like, Kaswa, no way. No way. You know, I see things on Instagram and it make me laugh. Dispatch riders will tell you that they go anywhere apart from Kaswa. What does that even mean? But Kaswa is very uniquely positioned. And I went to a development in Kaswa recently, and I was like, I have my sister-in-law's parents live in Kaswa. So I called and I was like, look, your area is on the map now because of what is happening in Kaswa. And the reason why Kaswa and Pram particularly, and Ada, it was mentioned, Malika mentioned the location in Ada, is because they are waterfront. And people from the diaspora love waterfronts. Ghana will say that the river god will come and catch my family, so I don't want trouble. Cultural factors. So we haven't developed our coastal areas. I mean, look at High Street, behind High Street. Look at what's there. But if this location was in Dubai, oh man. You know, right? But because we are now being introduced to a broader perspective, and also the opportunities that waterfront properties can, go and ask your family members if they have waterfront land and start planning, because that is the next thing. And then Ebri, because it's scenic. I mean, it's lush, green. There's something about entering a green space for me that just calms me. It's just something about nature. So your typical diaspora client, at least for where I work, SESO, is not looking for Accra. They are looking, do you have anything in Pram? Do you have anything in Ada? Ebri is typically top on the list, right? But Accra buyer, please, everybody is moving to this area. This is what I want, you know, but the market, again, like I said, has shifted, and the demography of the consumer has also changed. So what can we expect 2023 and beyond? So the trends are showing this. You see the red dotted line from Abidjan to Lagos. That is the fastest growing coastal stretch globally. And in the next 80 or so years, it is anticipated that it will be home to the largest continuous stretch of people. And if you look at that stretch, the largest proportion of it is in where? It's in Ghana. It's in Ghana. And so, I mean, there are very interesting times ahead of us in Ghana, which excites me because, I mean, it's good to know that attention is coming out of Accra and that other locations are going to have the opportunity to be developed, and probably in a more organized way than Accra has developed. We love our capital, but, you know, yeah. We could always do better, and there is hope that this is what is happening. And these opportunities also give rise to opportunities to everyone here to plug in and be part of this change. Let your great-great-great-great-grandchildren say that my grandmother made the best decision of investing in this project. Not like some of us say that, why didn't my dad buy some of this airport land when they were... Right? So this is what we can expect in 2023 and beyond. Obviously, it's not limited to the coastal areas, but the coast of Africa has been so underutilized that a lot of people are paying very close attention to that. And I mean, I work with SESO Global. We are going to be at the launch of one of these events next week, so you can just visit our stand outside to register if you want to see what is happening. So I started off by saying that the three most important things in real estate, as they say, are what? Location, location, location. And I'm sure you've heard it said over and over again that it's Africa's time. The location is Africa. And we are blessed to be Africans living in Africa and investing in Africa. And it is my desire that you walk away from this conference with a desire to be part of the movement that is going to grow Africa. Thank you.